Greetings, and I, giving thanks to His Majesty, for His mercy endures forever. Sound the trumpet, prepare for battle. Gird your loins, sharpen your swords. Make ready your arrows, bend the bow, and compass her round about. For we would have healed Babylon, yet she chose not balm for her pain. Two concepts that control our everyday lives here in Babylon is language and rule. The language is necessary to establish the rule as it is written, as it was written, and as it will be. When I was in a store yesterday, and they take in Haitian migrants and prepare them for citizenship. I overheard some of the questions, which my wife had actually been administered to as well. And one question struck out was, why did people immigrate to this country? And the answer was freedom. Short and simple. It's got a nice ring to it. And when the citizens to be hear this and learn this, of course they would attribute it to themselves and think, this is why I am here. So it matters little what rights this freedom entails, so long as it's called freedom. It must be. The prevailing theme to the test was that the drafters of the Constitution were the ones that first came and settled here. This is completely and utterly inaccurate. The drafters of the Constitution lived in this land 150 years after the separatists, which were the original English settlers. They came many years after the natives were already established, and therefore had no claim to the land in entirety. And yet they lived for righteous means and were justified in inhabiting the land on the basis that they were persecuted for their faith. And so I believe that many native, indigenous people can identify. Therefore, I am hard-pressed to believe that they had any tie to the African slave trade, which was conducted from the royal clans that existed in Europe solely to bring profit onto themselves. The question was also posed of who was brought here into slavery, and the answer was given as Africans. Yes, Africans. And also many other people. There were convicts with light skin that were brought here. We know that the Native Americans, Native Indians, were also enslaved to the point where they suffered death as a result of their captivity. And when I say death, I mean in entire groups of individuals, subcultures, civilizations were destroyed. The way that these questions are presented are so that, oh, we're telling you the truth. Yeah, but only partial truth and no real understanding. And so it leaves the test taker to believe that, you know, these people are looking out for my best interests. And I'm here for freedom. Now, everything that's being shown on the screen is selling this illusion of progress, so that people believe that what they see on the screen is reality. And they believe that they have a chance too, that there's a fair system and it's going to give them a chance, just like it gave Oprah or Michael Jackson or Michael Jordan a chance. The other article of interest was presented on the news this morning. BBC was talking about the migrants in Syria and Afghanistan that are coming into Europe and other areas of the world, and how the children are being taken into slavery, disappearing is what the report was about. We can only assume that they're being taken into compromising situations where their bodies are being sold for sex, perhaps labor. But as David said, we cannot trust in man. So it's being presented that many of these children are avoiding the detention centers. They find it more comfortable to avoid the whole asylum process and to risk their lives with the traffickers and kind of the underground street life. And so, but first we need to listen very carefully. When the reporter from BBC speaks about the US invading Afghanistan, that's what she says. She says, after the US invaded Afghanistan in 2002, and then at one point she makes reference to bombing by the United States, and she says that the migrants are escaping the bombing from the United States. It's the tone that she's using. It's sending an emotional frequency across to the audience to be spiteful of the U.S. I was coming from the British. The situation in Syria does not benefit anyone here in the United States. A pact was made in the 90s to secure a region of Syria solely for the purpose of the state that calls themselves Israel, and to control those resources therein. Now, we know that the state that calls itself Israel is nothing other than a company that's owned by the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds control the commodities and the energy sector and basically the entire supply chain. Of course, there's plenty other players involved. There has to be. You can't just manipulate the entire globe, on one finger. But the system's set forth so that the currency is used that's controlled by these so-called sovereign royal families. And the pipeline that's being attempted to be installed is set to run through that region, up from that region through the right up to the area in Europe. The fossil fuels are gonna be used by the States and Europe. The fossil fuels are not gonna be shipped anywhere else. That's what this war is about. That's why the United States has been hired to stage a coup against the elected official there, the Alawite regime, which failed, and has used its intelligence to gather certain individuals from around the world to fight this war for the interests of individuals in Europe, and in particular the Rothschild. Bashar al-Assad had stated that he does not consider the state that calls himself Israel to be legitimate. That was in an interview with BBC in 2006. And so, shortly thereafter, this episode erupted. Now, we must pay attention to how language is being used. Not just the words, but the tone of the words. And try to gain an understanding of motives and the motivation behind these attacks. The migrants would not exist without this war in Syria. There had to have been a root for the problem. These children would not be taken and have to suffer into trafficking without this war, this root cause of the problem. The bombing and the invasion of Afghanistan happened because there is $1 trillion in so-called measurement of the rare earth minerals underneath the surface in Afghanistan. It is not because the US or anyone was searching for bin Laden. That's a pretext. Most people get this by now. Unfortunately, some don't. And if they keep, shoving this selected information into our brains, then, eventually that's all people can think. Because if it's what's being told to us over and over again, then how can we think about anything else? It's like no one can hear two messages at once, because you're listening and you're thinking about what you're hearing. It's very difficult to take in other information. That's why when you go to protest, the Babylon man wants to get up in your face, because he wants to detract you from your thoughts, to put thoughts into your head, to overwhelm you, and hopefully get a negative reaction from you. So, well, we'll have to look at the big picture and look at the roots of the problem. Without this pact that was signed to benefit the ruling rulers, we would not have these issues, these children being forced into bondage. Without Babylon man's desire to build the machine to reach into the heavens, we would not have this invasion of the country Afghanistan, which has made many more foes than allies. And it appears that this is done intentionally, the same way that the police and other forces of brute attempt to provoke people to anger so that they have a reason to react. And then they can be seen as some kind of a god, a hero. Giving thanks each and every day, each and every way. Selassie I, Jah, Rastafari.